Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. I'm your host, Jefferson K. Rogers, in the studio with my partner in crime, Jeffrey Fieldstead.
What's up, guys?
And today, we got something that my partner here is fluent in speaking and building teams and leadership. We got some exciting stuff happening here at JKR Windows with some new comp plan developments that we're making that are encouraging building teams like we've never encouraged before. So I'm excited to roll it out and really start to see the impact that it's going to make. And it comes in large part as a result of your background, helping us get to this point to find things that do incentivize and encourage the right kind of behavior for building teams.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think that it's interesting, man, because a lot of people, they'll think they own a business, and they work really hard to increase their income. And I said it today on a call we were on. It's like if some people will increase activity to increase their income, and their rise is based on action. Mm-hmm. And then there's other people.
The hustle.
Yep. And you hear that a lot. And at some point, you got to do it. In order to master something, to get great at something, you've got to do it. Mm-hmm. But then at another place where when you start building a team, it's the decisions you make that are going to have the biggest impact on your income. And these decisions to build a team are where the great separation, I think, happens, because you can only do so much by yourself. But once you make a decision to go build a team, which is a decision, not just to build one, but then also a decision to pour time into the right people, to build certain systems that duplicate your energy throughout other people that may be learning long after you're out of the field, long after you're sitting across the kitchen table, but you've documented that process so that people can come in and learn from you, even though you may not be sitting next to them at the kitchen table. And it's that decision that the great separation really starts happening.
Yeah, there's only so many appointments you can go on personally. Yep. And that's a difference between a business and, well, I guess they're both businesses, but it's like a solopreneur and a business owner. Mm-hmm. One becomes a master, but it never translates into a business. Where the other, you know, for me, I got involved with sales, and I saw an opportunity through leadership and training and developing other people to do the things that I had learned to create a system. Yep. And that's kind of what the inspiration for JKR Windows was, that we've been chasing all these years, is I wanted to show other people how to do that.
Right.
Like I knew it didn't fire me up to be looking at an entire lifetime full of knocking doors.
Right.
No, I don't think it excites anybody. But if you could plug into a system that had the incentives in place and encouraged leadership and had a system that you could plug into where you could build something for yourself that wouldn't require you to be starting over every day and looking at a 20-year career of knocking doors, that excited me.
Yep. Well, it's interesting, dude, because we've talked about it. In door-to-door, you have, usually at most companies, you'll have a handful of people who are the regionals, and they're running regions in a business, and their whole MO is fall in love with the doors. So you get guys that come in and they make a ridiculous amount of income in a short amount of time. And then usually it's going to school and they're doing summer sales, or maybe they're, doing door-to-door full-time, but then they're doing school on the side until they graduate. And even though they're making more money doing door-to-door, they end up going to get a job, making far less money a lot of times, because that was their path to get off the doors.
And there is no path off the doors in most of these other places.
Exactly, other than leave. And so I think we wanted to do something different where we could reward getting off the doors by building a team and teaching other people to do what you had to get really good at and duplicate that into other people, and then keep and retain talent, which is just as important as attracting it, right? A lot of times when people are thinking about building a team, they just think about attracting and recruiting. But the retaining is just as important, right? How long do we retain someone for? Do we just retain them for a summer or a year or 2 years or 3 years, or do we retain them for a career? Is someone proud to build a career here?
Yeah, and it's tough to do unless you have a system where you can attract great people and they see themselves staying there for a long period of time.
Exactly.
because the money is exciting. Like, people come into door to door because of the money and because of these, the third party validation. You see somebody else that you knew from high school or college, and you're like, you're making what kind of money?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Man, if I could supplement and help pay for my college while I'm trying to work towards my career, why wouldn't I do that?
Right.
But the unique thing about what we're doing at JKR Windows is we don't want it to be just a summer thing or just a season of your life where you were able to make a great income and then you had to go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to be able to make a great income, and in a year from now, 2, 3, 4 years from now, you got something to show for all the work that you put in and the development that you've gone through as a leader and a coach and a mentor. Have something to show for all that work.
Yeah, and then you can pour that into other people. And that rather than having to be on the doors, you can help somebody who has that same dream go get on the doors, and then them also be able to build a system to get out of it as well. By doing something you believe in, helping customers, but you're not having to face that massive amount of rejection, which is uncomfortable for everybody. And anybody who's a stud's willing to do it, right? You go, hey, it's a necessary evil. It's part of the business, and I'll even love it while I'm doing it. Just don't want to do it forever.
Mm-hmm. So what did you call it when you say you were talking about glorifying the doors, or
glorifying the suck, probably? I mean, a lot of times people do.
Yeah, with almost every other place that I've ever learned about their structure, they have to glorify that setter position and knocking on doors, and they're trying to disguise it just to get people to knock for longer.
Yep.
Because there's really no other path. In most companies, there's no other path for them to take unless they want to go to a closer, which in most cases still requires you to self-generate leads,
mm-hmm.
which is done by knocking on doors.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic that's been created. And we talk about this all the time because there's been a ton of success stories in solar over the past 10 years.
Yep.
And a lot of money has been made. And I know some of these guys have been doing it almost since the beginning. One guy that I know, he's in his late 50s. He may even be 60 now, and he's still out there making selfie videos on the doors, knocking with his newest people.
Mm-hmm.
60 years old.
Yeah.
And it was always confusing to me when I first met the guy. And he's a golden door winner with gray hair.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, that's impressive. But why?
Yeah.
Like, why are you still doing this?
Yep.
I've never earned a golden door, but I was never interested. I was trying to build a system where I could attract great people that were golden door award-winning type of talent.
Yeah.
But have a system for them to plug into where they were not like, I'm going to glorify this. And imagine this, you're 60 years old and you're still being able to, out of the goodness of your heart, go out there and train people to knock doors.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think that excites many people.
It doesn't. I mean, there are a handful of people it does. And I think that's a great thing about you build a great system where regardless of somebody's goals, they can come in and accomplish their goals. Whether it's somebody who wants to come for a summer and make some great income, offering a great product and taking care of the consumer and learning some great skills in the process that may help them in their lives. Or, they come here for 2 or 3 or 4 years while they're going to college. That's awesome. But then at the same time, being able to build somebody that can build a career here and really live a big dream, but also somebody who maybe they just want to make $200,000 a year and they're happy doing that, and it's more money than they've ever made or they ever thought they would make. But it really doesn't take a tremendous amount or really a lot at all, honestly, to make a couple $100,000 a year doing Windows,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just really what do they want. But I think you have a special system. One of the things I've always said is in order to live a big dream, you got to build a team, right? There's a great book by Pat Williams that says extreme dreams need teams. It's a good book. And Pat Williams, I don't know if you know, but he was I think the senior vice president of the Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
And for a lot of years they dominated the NBA and did an incredible job. They had dudes like Shaquille O'Neal in his early days and saw talent early on, and so you look at people that have built successful organizations or successful teams, and they understand that the quality and quantity of quality time in their life is in direct proportion to the type of team that they build.
Mm-hmm.
And most people in their lives don't have someone around them saying, hey, you should build a team. Hey, you should think about being on the other side of the desk. You should think about being the recruiter, not the recruited. You should think about offering an opportunity. You should think about the greatest product in America is helping people go into business for themselves, where you can bring somebody into an opportunity and teach them how to control their own schedule, their own time, their own destiny, and then also allow other people to do the same thing by building a team, right? And we just offer an infrastructure and a system to where they can plug into, and they can master some few fundamental skills, get really good, and that's, get competent at the system, and that leads them to be massively confident, and that confident attracts a lot more people, and then ultimately, if they do a good job, they're going to retain them and keep people moving through that system, which then duplicates it, and that allows them to build a big business, right?
I love it. That's the idea. What do you think it would take, and do you think it would be wise for these other industries inside of door-to-door to adopt a similar model?
Yeah, I do. I do think it would be wise. And, dude, I have a lot of respect for a lot of these guys that have built some incredible companies. But in order for a lot of these guys who have built some incredible companies to change their model, they have to almost shake it up and start over, which is, it's hard. It's
really,
hard.
Really tough to do this late in the game.
Yeah. So how do you go to, maybe they got 7 or 10 regionals throughout the nation and say, hey, dude, we're going to democratize this whole thing and allow anybody to earn your spot, and then keep those guys there. Because door-to-door is notorious for having those regionals, and then there are studs that come up through and realize, like, oh, I'm never going to reach that dude's spot because he's going to protect it. And then what do? They go up, start their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's notorious for doing that. That's why most people who have been successful in door-to-door were already previously successful at another door-to-door company, and they left and went somewhere else because they realized that they couldn't actually accomplish what they wanted to accomplish there. So I think by democratizing the system and saying, hey, we're going to give anybody an opportunity to go build that, it isn't reserved for just a select few. It creates, a lot of times you say like transparency, which, that's a perfect definition of it. But I just look at it, it's an opportunity. And no matter what, if you've got the goals and dreams and vision and work ethic, and you're willing to put in the hard work and go out and build the team, then it's yours for the taking. You just got to go get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think more people would do it if it didn't question like everything that they had built the foundation of their business on, and they would essentially have to start over. Because a lot of times, what we've experienced over the past 18 months is that leadership and relationships are extremely important. And when there's that level of trust, like, it's not like this is just a small variation of what we were doing before. It's big variation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we had the trust, and we had the great people, and we had set those expectations properly, communicated what we were doing, and we've got the transparency. So I think it could be done.
Yeah,
but
no doubt it could.
It's
yeah.
so far down this path of kind of like things are happening behind closed doors nobody wants their sales organization to know about, that to go back to a place where they had to be that transparent about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the main hurdles that companies would deal with trying to put something like this in place that could explode their business, but just has them trapped.
Yeah, I agree. And most of them, I think most of these guys that are great dudes, they know that they've got to risk everything they've built in order to make the change they know they probably should make. Mm-hmm. Something like this. But, it's a challenge. And in business, that's what happens is you solve one problem and it creates another, and then they question whether or not, like, hey, is my life good enough to where I don't have to create another problem? And a lot of times they're negotiating. And I think, even for us, you talk about these relationships, it's crucial, right? But I think also is doing it for the right reasons and doing it with the right intentions. And is it just about growing the business, or is it also doing what's best for our people, and doing what's best for those guys and helping them? Because let's face it, some of these guys, they would just sell for their whole career and be across the kitchen table. And we're the ones that are trying to say, hey, listen, dude, you don't have to do this forever.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's that's what's fun about being in business, because you just mentioned it earlier. Like, some people just aren't around the environment or the people that are talking about leadership and building teams. And so the awareness just isn't there.
Yeah.
And I love being that catalyst for people, for the right people at the right place in their career, to see that opportunity and not get sucked into the trap like in most sales industries, that this is just something you're going to have to do for the rest of your career, man.
Yeah.
Basically, you got to glorify starting over every single day for the rest of your career.
Yeah, and it isn't how it has to be. But I think if you can figure out a way, which we have, I always say, dude, I think we broke the code. That if you can figure out a way to help align your sales organization with the company, and that your goals align and the actions align, dude, you can become unstoppable. Because a lot of times, most people that start a company, they do it with the right intentions. They do it for the right reasons, and they start having a lot of success. And then a lot of guys that start companies are sales guys. Like, hey, they're selling, they're out there across the kitchen table, and then they, have got a buddy, hey, let's go do this together, and then they do it. But then the sales start becoming a large portion of the business, and they start thinking, hey, how do we stop this so that we can take more, right? Instead of building it on a model that says, hey, it could be unlimited as long as we do it the right way, so we can continue to grow both the business and the sales side, and allow them to go get everything they wanted to go get, and there's no cap on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's one of the exciting parts of this exercise that we've been doing over the last 18 months, and just working through all the scenarios and how does it change behavior and align the company with the sales rep, which also impacts the customer. Because with a combination of the comp plan and the things that we've incentivized to make sure that they're writing good business, it's like we have broke the code where everything. I'm sure we'll still continue to poke holes in this thing and make it even better. 5 years from now, we're not going to look anything like this. But the alignment just feels so good right now between the company and the salespeople, and how that impacts the customers.
Yeah. Well, and I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, right? Is if your customer, which I think we're seeing this happen in solar actually right now, but if your customer is happy because of the result that they've gotten by dealing with salespeople who have been honest, treated them good and fairly throughout that process, the company's happy as well. And then if the company is happy, the company is going to invest more money back into those salespeople, and those salespeople are going to invest more time and energy back into getting more customers and creating happiness. But then it's also important for the customer or the company to take care of those customers, so the customers are giving that positive reinforcement back into those sales reps. Hey, I had a great experience. They're talking to their friends, their family, but also the sales rep, and then they're more confident whether they're out on the doors, they're across the kitchen table, or they're sitting across the desk from somebody recruiting them into the business, and they can feel confident knowing that, hey, we're going to deliver for your customers. We always say that we are a national window company with a fierce commitment to people, and it's like, do you really have that fierce commitment? Is it just, hey, we have a commitment to make a sale, or do we have a commitment to follow through and make sure that we're going to do everything we said we were going to do plus some?
Yeah, that is the motto of JKR Windows, and since the beginning, that was a commitment that's tough for companies to make, because it can easily start to become about the money, and then you forget about the experience that you're providing, the environment and the culture that gets created about these expectations that you set as a company to deliver also. And it's not just about making money. It can't just be about making money.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just lumped in with 95% of other businesses that fail because they're in business for the wrong reason.
Right.
And I'm reading, have you read Dan Martell's book?
Buy Back Your Time.
Buy Back Your Time?
I have, yeah.
I like that guy.
Yeah, he's a stud.
He's good.
He was on the Solid podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I bought his book after he was on your guys' podcast, and then it's been sitting there. And then just recently, so I'm reading 5 books now.
Better hurry up and finish those damn things, bro. It's going to keep growing.
It does. I'm getting close on a couple of them. But, yeah, I love some of his philosophies about the they just align with some of the things that we're working on. It's interesting how when you get into business and you've read as many books as we have, how similar success principles and all of these philosophies are. They're just told with a little bit different perspective.
Yeah.
And Dan has a different perspective, but it's the same principles. And I love the idea of buying back your time, because it applies the same in business as an executive as it does to the newest salesperson. Because it gives you, if you're exposed to it, it kind of gives you a light at the end of the tunnel. Because no matter who you are, your time it's a valuable resource, and you can go make more money, but you can't get more time.
Nope. And
these guys that we know a couple of them here that have just never been exposed to this type of environment, the culture, and like there's a possibility of building a system and having something and building a legacy, and you just get in this like the hamster wheel.
Yep.
And it just becomes normal. Like, I just got to start over every day. There is no thought of buying back time or being more efficient. It's just, how can I become better at making the sale? Which is great. You have to do that to be able to build a team and to be an effective leader and to train and mentor. But it's the fun part about business is exposing people to that.
Yeah, it's like, what is your reason behind mastering something, right? Because you can master it to do it, or you can master it to teach it. And I always challenge this to people. It's like, if you're gonna learn something, always be thinking about, okay, now how am I going to teach this? Because when you start talking about it with words and having to communicate how you do something, then you're going to know whether it's replicable into somebody else. Can I duplicate this result or this outcome into somebody else by communicating it? And if you can't, then it's complicated, and odds are you're not going to get very big if you try to duplicate it, which is why you hear these sayings like, if you want something right, do it yourself, which is BS. It's not true, right? That's just somebody who hasn't learned how to communicate and duplicate their process into somebody else. But then a lot of times, if you're learning something so that you can duplicate it and teach somebody else, you learn how to simplify it. Like, what do I need to be able to get the result? But what am I doing that I don't really need? And that helps you simplify things to where you can, if we want to call it, buy back some of your time. Because a lot of things that we do in our lives, we don't need to do every part of that to get a similar result. It's the Pareto principle, right? 80% of the result, 20% of the effort, right? What is the effort that I'm giving that's getting me the majority of the result that I want? And then let's simplify the rest or delegate it. So I can either simplify or have somebody else do it. And that's where you can actually start thinking about building a team. And this is whether it's business, whether it's in sales, whether it's in sports, you have to delegate. No, it's always funny to me, dude, that, people who we talk to them about building a team, especially if they're in sales, and they're like, what? Why? I make plenty of money doing it by myself. And I'm like, if you went to a guy who was starting a restaurant and he told you that he was going to cook the food, serve the food, be the host, be the cashier, be the janitor, do it all, you would say, what? Why? Why would you try to do that all yourself? And you say, yeah, you probably ought to have a team, right? You probably ought to hire and train some people to help you do this. Oh, well, yeah, well, that makes sense. Why is it any different? If you're going to talk to a football coach and he said, yeah, I'm going to coach the team, I'm going to be the quarterback, the receiver, I'm going to play defense, I'm going to do it all, they say it's never going to work. Why? Because you need a team. Yeah, the same thing with business. It's no different. So I don't understand for most people where the disconnect is.
It's that conditioning. It's that same thing that we were just talking about. It's like it's a mystery of the universe, but it's really pretty simple because there's all these businesses that don't have a structure or an incentive plan for anything else. So they've glorified this starting over every day and being a master at your craft and showing up and being able to close down any deal. Like, that's the only avenue for you to ever follow. So it's just become ingrained in most sales industries that's the way of the universe.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not. It's silly. When you put it like that, it's like, that seems like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, it's because it is usually, right? Like, I mean, if what you said is true, which it is, we only have so many hours in a day. And you can always make more money, but you can't get time back. if that is true, then I always look at how can we do both?
Yeah.
Like, how can I have my time back, but also be able to increase my income? And is there a way? I was talking to someone earlier and say, hey, I have a problem. I said, that you need to change that. That's not how I want to hear it. So what are you talking about? I say, I'm looking for a solution, right? Now we can start having a conversation. But if we already know everybody's problem is there's only 24 hours in a day. And how many broke people you hear say, well, there's not enough time in a day? Well, there's plenty of time in a day. Elon Musk has the same amount of hours as we do. So he's obviously doing something more efficiently with his time. He's got better people, better processes, better systems to be able to run multiple billion-dollar companies at the same time while being able to be distracted about a bunch of other stuff. And so the question is, how does a guy like that get those kind of results? Or you look at a guy like Richard Branson, who runs the Virgin Brands, and all the success he's had running multiple billion-dollar companies from an island in the middle of the Caribbean and having a ton of free time because he's got a great team. He didn't do that by himself. And so I think a lot of times it starts with just the perspective of realizing that most successful entrepreneurs look at somebody who says things like, this, I can just do it by myself, which I think it all comes down to they believe that they can just make a certain amount of money and they just don't really believe they can actually build a business and do something big. I think it comes down to belief. But if you really think about it, a successful entrepreneur looks at somebody who's doing it by themselves and thinks they're crazy. But then a lot of times somebody who's doing it by themselves and making okay money looks at somebody who's going for something big and building a team and thinks they're crazy. The question is, what outcome do you really want?
Yeah. And are you willing to take a look at your process and admit that there's another way? There was a guy that showed up to my house a few weeks ago. He's in pest control. And I'm always like catching people's paradigms and their thought patterns, and I'm like trying to plant some seeds because this guy is totally stuck. And he's doing everything. He does the sales. He's there knocking on my door as the owner of the company. He's been doing it for 4 years, and he wants to get some more accounts. So what does he do? He goes back out knocking some doors. And he also does all of the servicing of the accounts. So maybe the guy's making some great money, but I'm like planting these seeds like, bro, you can do this forever? Like, you're going to do all the sales and all the fulfillment forever? That's not a business, bro. That is not a business. And I can't remember what you told me, because I at one point had a service business, but it wasn't a business. It was just a glorified freaking job that I just happened to control my schedule because I was a slave to my business. I worked 24/7. I was on call 24/7.
Yeah.
If I got sick, I didn't make money. If I didn't show up to help a customer, I was fired. And it was all predicated on whether I showed up and continued to put in work.
Yep.
And it has bothered me ever since, the way that you told me. I can't remember. It was some just smart-ass remark.
It probably was. So.
It's like, bro, you ain't got a business. You got a job.
Yeah, you just bought yourself a job.
You just bought yourself a job. And I never looked at my business the same after that.
Yeah.
Because I went home and I was open and I was coachable and I started looking at everything different.
Yeah.
And sometimes people aren't ready to look at it different yet. And that kid, not ready.
Yeah.
Didn't hear anything I was saying. Went right over his head.
Yep.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did catch some of it, and I hope he did. But man, he's a hard worker. He's very, very talented. He's great with people. And for me to imagine that talented of a human being stuck on that hamster wheel for the rest of his life is it's like I feel like I have an obligation.
Yeah.
To try and help him see that there is more possible for you, buddy.
No doubt. There is. And for most people, they just don't have someone being willing to be honest with them and tell them, like, hey, there's more out there for you to go get. Just open the window of possibilities, pun intended.
Yep, exactly. But it's all about being in the right place at the right time and being open-minded, coachable, curious. Some people are ready, some people are not.
Yep. It's one of my favorite African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I love that because I really think it's true, and it's so true in sales, because a lot of times you see some really highly talented, skilled, somewhat high income producing salespeople, and they do it for a long time by themselves. And then usually what happens is they get good at making money. And so at the beginning, it's like, they're driving a Honda and living in a regular house. And then they get good at making money. They're saving a little bit because they're stressed out about how much they struggled. And then eventually they, now they buy a Mercedes, and then they buy a little bit bigger house, and then they buy a little bit nicer car and a little bit bigger house and nicer clothes and they increase their lifestyle, but their income is the same as when they were driving a Honda and living in a regular house. And so what happens is they get this lifestyle creep, and so eventually they get to a point where now they're required to show up and go put in that amount of activity. And they've become a pro at what they do. They've become excellent at it. They've gotten really good at managing their time, and they've become experts. But now they can't let up. They can't think twice.
Yeah. And
they've backed themselves into a corner, and there's no way out. And I think that, to me, is the most unfortunate place I see people be in sales. You see it happen a lot.
There's only one way out of it.
Yes.
Like the entire thing has to crumble.
Yep.
Because now there's no taking a step back and going to build a team now.
Mm-mm.
You have just built yourself a trap.
Can't think twice. Yep. See it happen a lot with real estate agents. See it happen a lot in the mortgage industry. You see it happen a lot with doctors, with these self-employed professions, and you see it happen a lot. And to me, that's the challenging part, where they start having to juggle between priorities. See it lawyers too. And so that then they start, it's like, okay, now I want to spend more time with my family, but I've got all these incredible commitments I've made. Put my family in a big house, my kids in private schools. I've done all this, and probably too soon for most of them. And there's no way for me to work my way out of it because I am the work. Mm-hmm. Where if somebody starts and they start building a team, it may even take them a little bit longer, but they get to the same place and they got all this freedom. And now they live in the same house, the same car, kids are in the same private schools. But now they go, I have total freedom. I can do whatever I want during the day. And so I don't think it has to be an either-or thing. It just has to be a conscious decision to say, I want to achieve this end result. And it may be a little bit more challenging at the beginning because you're having to learn a skill set in order to teach it, which means you have to be able to communicate it and think about it and pay attention to how you come across sometimes to other people and deal with multiple personalities. And it's not just a customer now. Now it's a rep, and they're thinking about themselves. And so maybe you have to swallow your pride a little bit, which a lot of times if we're pros and we're really good at our career and we're great at sales and we know what we're doing, and sometimes it's hard to swallow our pride and saying, hey, maybe there's another way. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not the only way. Even though you're having a massive amount of results, maybe somebody else can have just the same results and do it a little bit different.
Yeah. And whether or not it is or not, your leadership is influence. And whether you have good intentions or not, the perception is so important. So there's a lot of these dynamics that are different in a sales environment than they are in coaching and mentoring. Different set of skills and communication that you have to be able to influence people.
Well, it's funny, dude, because I think a lot of times, I said it a minute ago, that just most people don't believe they can actually do it. They don't think, I think some people believe that at the beginning, I don't think I could close a sale. And then they do it. They learn the script. They learn, they do it. They learn how to close. And they're like, oh my gosh, I know that's how I was right at the beginning. I remember the first time I closed a sale, I got the check and I was out of there. I couldn't even think straight. I couldn't even believe they said yes. I'm hurrying up trying to get out of the house before they change their mind. And
I got a similar story.
Yeah, I just think it's pure luck. It wasn't, right? I had learned a script, and I'd asked a question. I had done enough activity to put myself in front of the right person, but I was scared to death. And I think that's a natural thing for most people to think, dang, I don't know if I could do this. And then you do it, and you're like, oh, maybe I can do it, right? And then you start building that confidence. And then when someone says, hey, you should build a team of people, and then you're like, you mean I got to recruit someone to go through what I just went through? Do you know how scared I was? And it's kind of this like nervous feeling again. Like, do I really want to put somebody through that feeling? And I think a lot of good people have that when we talk about recruiting and building a team in sales. If you're a good person and it was challenging for you like it was for me, and I know it was for you as well, where most people just think, oh, it just came easy. No, it didn't come easy. In fact, it was hard. But if you're a good person, you're naturally going to have some empathy for someone else and go, man, I'm sorry, it's going to be uncomfortable in advance. And you kind of feel for this person. You know how much pain and struggle they're going to go through. And a lot of times, if you're a recruiter and you believe in the future, you do that before you ever actually broke through to the other side. And one of the things I've tried to tell people is like, listen, if Alexander Graham Bell can invent a phone, right? If Thomas Edison can invent a light bulb, if you got guys like Elon Musk sending rockets to space and landing them back on Earth, whether or not that's a whole nother conversation. You think whether or not it really went to space or not, right? But if they did these, if they really did these things, then you could sure as hell recruit 3 people. You know what I mean? Like it's just a belief thing. That's all it is.
Isn't that crazy too? I remember having those same thoughts. And I've had a great upbringing. My mom believed in me. She instilled confidence. She told me my whole life that I was born first for a reason. You're the older brother. But I can't imagine having experienced it firsthand and what I had to overcome, not having had that background.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody in your corner like encouraging you and helping you build belief in yourself that this is possible and you got it.
Yep.
Trust me, it's like this is part of the process. The obstacles and the challenges helps you become. Like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's crazy.
Well, how many times do you hear a guy who maybe even has had a little bit of success and made a little bit of money in business? He's like, I just can't find any good people. Just can't find any good ones.
All the time.
It's like one of the most common things you hear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people trying to build a business. Like, where do you find all these good people? And it's like, well, most of it is from your messaging, because when you say that, you're never going to find somebody good because you're always telling everybody you can't find anybody good. So you're not very attractive. So if you're not attractive enough as a company to attract good people, you're definitely not going to retain. You can't retain somebody you didn't attract in the first place. You never got them to begin with. So you have to be able to attract people. So you got to think about the things that you're saying and the way that you present yourself. And I think that's another important thing for anybody who's really trying to build a team, is they got to think about the way that they're perceived through their words. Rather than if you're saying, hey, I'm looking for great people. There's totally different message between I'm always looking for great people and the guy who says, I can never find anybody good. It's the same thing. It's just phrased a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. And then people naturally want to help people, right? So I believe that, like, you know, if you have young kids, you realize that, you know, it takes a village to raise children. Like, people that have kids need help, right? It's not always easy. And so if you're not ever saying, hey, I'm always looking for great people, if people do want to help people in a community, then guess what they're saying? Oh, Jefferson's looking for great people. I know somebody. You know who you should go see? Mm-hmm. You should go see Jefferson.
That's interesting, because we have people walking through the door almost every day.
We do, right? And it happens. But how often are we saying? We're always looking for great people. Now, is everybody going to qualify? No. Do we want everybody? No. We just want the good ones.
Yeah.
We're always looking for great people. We're not looking for anybody. We're looking for the right people. Versus, you're never going to hear me say we can never find great people, because I don't believe that. It is not true.
It's just not true.
There's 7 billion people in this world, and there's a lot of incredible people. You just got to find them.
It's not true for anybody else, but they make it true for themselves. Mm-hmm. And because it is so common, it's like I've got an answer teed up almost every time, and it's like that another, like, I feel obligated now to help this guy with a little perspective.
Yeah.
Because businesses fail for a reason. That's one of them. But it's a series of things that leads to that level of belief. One of them is just not seeking the extra knowledge and extra level for themselves and exposing themselves to other business owners and an environment where there's that type of belief, because it has to come from somewhere.
Right.
And I was a part of those same type of circles early on too, where we could never find good people.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it my whole life. So I can see how it gets ingrained, and it's kind of interesting how similarly people talk about it. It's like it's a, what do you call it, where everybody's affected by.
Yeah, I know. I can't think of the word right now. But it's the whole go to school, get good grades, get an education, get a good job theory, right? It's just programmed into the world where they've done such a good job of marketing it that everybody else kind of says the same thing.
They all say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the only difference for me, I started JKR Windows and started establishing my own philosophy in business and why we were being successful. And I wanted to instill it into the culture and never lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And culture, leadership, and vision are the three like really, really important things. And when you've got, I also read a book by Patrick Bet-David that was called
Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And he talks about having, like, not only do you need to have your goals, but you need to choose an enemy to go after. So you've got this, you've got this mission to be on, and you got something to talk about and a vision for you to be fighting for with your team. And in our previous financial business, it was called a
crusade.
It was a crusade. Yeah, like it's applicable in all types of business.
Yep.
And as you grow, it's harder to maintain that because earlier I had a very clear objective. I wanted to beat those guys, and I was not going to stop. I was working day and night until I beat them, and then it happened quick, and I was like, okay, we need a new target.
Yep.
So it's part of what makes business special.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get somebody started early on in business, you've got to find what their individual version of that looks like. Because for me, when I first got started in sales, had I not experienced those hardships of working my ass off for very little money and like looking at my future and other guys I was working with that had been doing it for 30 years longer than me, is like, this is what I got to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of that version of my vision for the future, was to just not end up like that.
Right.
And you can help people tap into that and build their belief that not only can they do it in sales and make a sale and become great if they're willing, if they got the desire and they're willing to put in the effort. Same thing with building a team. Listen, neither one of us started out that good at talking to people, period.
Right.
Let alone leading and influencing. I blew everybody out of the water in my first year.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have patience for people. I was rough. I was stern. I was like, well, how come you guys can't figure this out? Quit wasting my fucking time.
Yep.
That was obviously not the right way to do it.
Right.
But I believed that I could do it, and I just kept making the improvements. And sometimes people don't have the kind of background or the belief in myself, or I know the belief that you had in yourself to just keep pushing.
Yep.
So as leaders, we get an opportunity to help instill that in people.
Yeah, and I wonder, I mean, I know I definitely had some belief in myself. I think my mom did a good job of always telling me if I could be successful at doing anything I put my mind to. But I also think that fear was a powerful motivator for me. Like, one of my favorite quotes is by Jimmy Iovine, right? He's the founder of Interscope Records. And he said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, fear is a powerful thing. He said, if you can learn to use fear to drive you instead of stop you, you can become unstoppable. And I think about, like, the guy that you'd been working with for 30 years, right? Most people look at that and go, dang, this is what I have to look forward to. I don't know where I messed up, or I guess this is the hand that was dealt. I guess this is what God wants for me, you know? And that's kind of their perspective. Where mine is like, I am scared to death to end up like this dude. Now, I'm never going to tell that guy that. But that is the last thing I want to do with the one and only life I get, is to end up like that dude. And so for me, I always use fear as that motivator of, if I don't do this thing that's uncomfortable, then I end up there, and that's more uncomfortable. Tony Robbins in his book, Awaken the Giant Within, talks about that human beings are always seeking comfort, but they'll settle for the least uncomfortable thing. So if success is less uncomfortable for you than being broke, miserable, or staying in the same place forever, then you're going to end up successful, because all the crap you got to go through to become successful is less uncomfortable for you than staying where you're at. And so you've got to learn to be fearful of staying there and that's, I think, where people always say fall in love. And early on in my career, I would hear these people say, oh, you just got to fall in love with it, man. You just got to love winning. You just got to love the process, love being across the kitchen table, love sales. And I'm sitting there like, dude, this shit sucks. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to love this. But you keep doing it, and then you get to the other side of it, and you're like, oh, okay, I see what they mean. I understand it now, which is why I've always said that only successful people ever say something like, oh, the joy is in the journey, not the destination, and I'm like, bullshit. Like, if I'm going on a trip to the Bahamas, I don't love being on the plane. I'm trying to get to the beach.
It is the destination.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean you can't have a better journey on the way there. Yeah. And so I think that's where embracing the fear and using situations like you were talking about the dude you worked with is you got to be careful not to settle. You got to be careful not to end up in a situation like that and think that it's okay because you're comparing yourself to everybody else you're around. And that's what environment really is. That's why environment is so important. And some people don't love to be in an environment where people are going to challenge them to say, hey, you're better than where you're at. And so they go find an environment that it's acceptable to underperform. And I've always said that. Most people don't ever like to raise the bar. They like to walk under it, not raise it. So
stay comfortable.
I want to be around people trying to raise the bar.
Yep. You got to be intentional about that, though, because it's not gonna happen without you putting yourself there.
Right.
It wouldn't have happened for me. The circles that we were hanging around with, we saw what happened to the guys that never got out of the circles. They either ended up dead, in jail, or they're just driving around doing construction like we would have been doing right alongside them. So I think the fun podcast, talking about things that we love, that fire us up, building teams, training and developing people, leadership, and it's possible for anybody if you believe it's possible. That's the reason you watch a podcast, isn't it? To get exposed to a new awareness, new perspective, people that are operating at a high level. If you can't get in the room, you may as well read the books and get on the podcasts with people that are talking at a high level to get exposed to a different level of thinking.
True, dude. Walt Disney said something like, all your dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. And so you got to have some courage, man. You got to have some guts to get up, go after it, put yourself in the right environment, listen to the right audios, read the right books. Some people say, I don't have a mentor, but everybody does. All you got to do is go down to the bookstore. I mean, most people can go to a local library and check out a book it don't cost very much. You can listen to a lot of books.
You can buy them for $1. I've bought probably 50 or 60 books from the DI for $1, $2 tops.
Or the other day, like Art of War on Audible is free. Free. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of free books you can get on YouTube or download on the internet. If you're serious about changing your life, the information is there. The audios are there. The books are there. The mentors are there. You just got to be serious about actually making a change.
Yeah. One of the things that was tough for me, too, was when you're starting something new, you suck. And I wasn't used to sucking at anything. I was never that good at sports, but I would muscle my way and I'd be aggressive, and it kind of made up for where I lacked in talent. But I've always been relatively good at most of the things that I did. And in business and in sales and in leadership, communication, after being a pothead for so many years, I sucked. And it was uncomfortable. And I don't like sucking at something.
Nobody does.
It's one of the challenges of getting involved in sales or in business is, man, you just got to come to terms with you're going to suck for a while.
Yep. Got to suck before you can get good. You got to be good before you can get great. Just the process. It's the way it goes. I always joke around and say, when mom gives birth to a baby, the doctor don't hold up the baby, smack him on the butt, and say this one was born to go overcome objections. It doesn't work that way. Yep. It's like you just are going to grow up in a certain environment, and one of these days you're going to decide whether or not you want to change that environment or whether you want to add to it and make it better or whether you want to just exist because of it. Because there are a lot of people born in incredible environments, and they don't choose to take advantage of that environment and become better because of it. There's a lot of people born into wealthy parents and they've got all the resources they could ever imagine, and they still don't do anything with it. And then there are other people that are born with nothing, and then they end up becoming great, and they do something special with their lives. But then there, at the same time, there are people that are born in an incredible environment with all the resources, and they use it, and they go become successful. Remember, I had a friend like that one time, and he was helping one of his children become successful. And one of my friends said, oh, yeah, but his dad just helped him. I go, that's what a dad's supposed to do. Like, why would you criticize that? Like, you know why you're criticizing that? Because you hate that his dad won and he was in an opportunity that his dad could actually help him succeed. Would you like the dude better if his dad didn't help him at all? Then he'd be criticizing his dad and saying, well, why doesn't dad help him? So is it really that his dad's helping him, or you just feel threatened because his dad's helping him?
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, dude, it doesn't matter where somebody's at. It just matters that they make a decision today to say, you know what? I think I'm going to buy into this. I'm going to get great at something, and I hope it's great at sales, right? So that you can duplicate it and teach other people and go build a team. Because like I said at the beginning, if you want to live a big dream, go build a big team.
That's right. Yep, nothing significant or special was ever done by an individual.
Nope. Sergey Brin had a partner. Larry Page. Bill Gates had a partner. Right? It doesn't matter. I mean, anybody that ever did anything big always had somebody and a team around them to help them go do something special. Anybody. Didn't matter who it was.
Yep. So build yourself a team. Message of the day. If you're not quite there yet, it's possible. You just got to believe it's possible. Read the books, listen to the podcasts, write your goals down. Chase those goals with everything in you. Take massive action. Keep coming back every week for another episode of Just Real Quick. And if you know somebody who could use a message like this, shoot over a link. Share the podcast with them. We'd love to get this in front of more eyeballs, impact more people's lives, build more belief than we can do just here in our little town of St. George, Utah. So appreciate you checking in. Like and subscribe to the podcast. Keep coming back every week for more. We'll see you guys next time.